We've had a conversation, like, I think we're open to getting to know each other.
And whatever happens, our friendship stays.
It's not even like that. It's literally just said open to a couple of chats. And I said whatever happens, like the friendship remains.
Okay, what I plan to do is when I get a moment, because I'm back at work, I'll try my best to do a review on Scott and Leanne's journey. I know I've done something, but I might need to sort of edit and take out a couple of bits because I have a couple of opinions. I personally feel like people are not looking at this objectively. They're just seeing Scott there and then they're thinking he's cheating on Leanne. But every chat he's had with Belle has been the one pulling him for chats. He hasn't pulled her for chats. And he's been very vague about it. The audacity for her to say, I won't accept her, no. She knows Scott doesn't want her. She knows it. He's open to flirting. He's open to chatting because he wasn't sure what's going on with Leanne. And he was open to a friendship couple with Belle, but he's not open to a romantic relationship from what he said. Because if you listen to what he said to her in the secret garden and then what he said to Leanne, it matches. And for Belle, I feel like because she knows that Scott will never give up Leanne, she is now trying to intimidate Leanne into giving up Scott. That way Scott will be free for her. Because without that, she can't have Scott. Scott keeps insisting that he's got feelings for Leanne and he doesn't know how to process that. And the other thing as well is, it's interesting because we can all see the storyline. When the results were announced and Whitney was told she and Yemen raised each other's heart rates the least, she said, storyline, I'm not buying that. How can you say Leanne and Tommy raised each other's heart rates higher than we did? And so for me personally, I'm going to say this. Scott must have been paid a lot of money to come on the show. And they've decided to use him the way they use Joey Essex, in the sense that he has to be in every scene, he has to be in the drama that's happening in the villa. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense that he told Leanne you only wanted Leanne, and then the next minute he's being told that he's now fancying Belle. He hasn't come out and said, I fancy you. He said, I fancied you, but he hasn't said, I fancy you. Anyway, I digress. Hey there, thanks for stopping by. It's Valerie. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, turn on the notification bell for when I upload new videos, and definitely leave a comment. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Love Island All Stars Season 3, Episode 24. So they announced the results, and you know the results are skewed, obviously, because the producers are trying to create drama. The problem they have is Scott and Leanne have become the main story in the villa, and the theatrics that's happening around their connection. And so in order for them to bring everybody else, I think this is why they skewed the results, because the results for the boys were as follows. Well, for the girls, Millie was raised her heart rate by Zac. Makes sense, she's infatuated by him. Helena by Harrison, I think it's because of their history. Sammy by Tommy, it didn't make sense. Leanne apparently by Yemen, I don't think so. Given everything Scott did, Scott wasn't happy when that result was announced. You could see on his face that Scott wasn't happy. Lucinda, apparently hers was raised by Sean, and I think this is because producers are trying to keep them as a couple. Whitney apparently was raised by Jack, but she was surprised. Belle was raised by Scott. What do I think? Producers have couples that they want to get to the finale, and sadly, I'm going to say it here first. I have a feeling at some point, Leanne is going to say, I give up, I'm leaving. And when Leanne decides to leave, Scott is right behind her. I am willing to bet anyone. Come back to this video. When Leanne leaves, if she self-eliminates, Scott is going with her. He's not staying for that toxic mess. He is doing what he has to do at the moment because they've paid him big bucks to come to the show. But I have a feeling if Leanne leaves, Scott is right behind her because Scott is not playing stupid games. I feel like he's in the villa to keep an eye on Leanne until she comes back to him. He's not going to leave her and run the risk of somebody else coming in and taking her from him. And if she leaves the villa, he is going with her because he's going to work until he wins her. I have a feeling they're living together. I'm going to say that, and I'll stick to that. And my sentiment, I've been thinking about it since I saw yesterday's episode, and I think this might have actually happened because of the comment that, the narrator, what's his name? Oh my God, his name has skipped my mind. Said that, Leanne is to watch the show back because most people that have watched the show back after living with the guy have ended up separating from the guy. But I hope they are an anomaly because Scott has been consistent in one thing, that his feelings for Leanne are it. Anyway, I digress. We have the guys. You have Yemen. Apparently, his heart rate was raised by Jesse. Whitney wasn't happy. She said that's a fluke storyline. We need to change the script. Jack, apparently it was Sher. Tommy was Jesse, Sean was Lucinda, Harrison was Belle, Carrington was Jesse, Kieran was Jesse, Zac was Jesse, and Scott was Jesse. These results were announced by Belle, and Belle wasn't happy with the results. She wasn't happy with the results, so hey, I don't know. That's not her man, so she can't throw a fit. She has to just sit there and bear with whatever's happening and take her seat, as you know, Whitney has already said. Anyway, the islanders move away from the fire pit. You have Scott still at the fire pit, and Belle starts having a chat with him. Belle is really trying a lot. Because she was saying to him, look at my makeup, it's all patchy, you removed all my makeup, oh, you did this. And I was like, you make it seem like this man was eating you alive when he didn't. He ate Leanne and everybody saw it. But you're trying to sort of instill your beliefs that you are entitled to this man so that he picks you. Scott's body language, you could tell that he's not into her. The problem with Scott is, even if he's flirting with someone, his body language says it all. His body language says it all. He is always closed off. So arms crossed, leg over with the other leg, and is sort of pointing to the opposite direction from the person who's sitting next to him. Whereas with Leanne, he has to face her, or he sits with his arms open as though he's, wanting to sort of invite her into his space. And so the idea that you have Belle saying that, you really did this, we spent a lot of time on the floor kissing one another. And it's like, I don't get it and I don't understand it. For her to say to him, give him a cuddle, and actually physically move his hand to cuddle her, and he didn't do it. He just did it like, friendship hug. Scott is not stupid. Scott is not stupid. He will do things that he's able to explain and justify, but he won't do things that go against that, because he's already been told by Leanne that you lack empathy and you lack consideration. So he's always going to do what he feels is considerate of Leanne. Anyway, you have Jesse come up to him and it's like, God, are they on a conveyor belt? She was talking about his eye contact and, and she was asking him, so what's your position? And Scott said, at the moment I'm single and confused because I don't know what's going on. I think Scott wants Leanne to come out and say, I'm ready, let us close things off, I'm ready to be in a couple with you. But she is not saying that, and he, because he's opened his heart to Leanne and she hasn't responded the way he expected her to respond, he's now in this space whereby he doesn't know whether to continue opening himself up to her or just, take his losses and keep it stepping. But I don't think he will keep it stepping. You have Kieran and Sammy having a chat, and so, they were discussing the fact that Kieran's heart was raised by Jesse, and personally, I don't think so. Jesse, she's got a sweet voice, she looks pretty, but Jessie is one of those sort of malicious girls. The way she talks down to people, I didn't like it. The way she's so patronizing when she spoke to Josh in their season. So the idea that Kieran, having seen her in that light, would suddenly say he's open to her, no. He said he's not open to anyone, even if new bombshells come in. And I'm like, well, production. Scott said the same thing, and we forced him onto Belle. Can we do the same on Kieran? Can we force him on Jess? Because why is it Scott is the only one who's being forced to explore connections with other people? Millie and Zac. Millie and Zac were sort of having a conversation on the terrace about Zac's heart rate being raised by Jess. And I think Millie is now insecure because all the girls have been respectful and they've kept away from Jess, from Zac, because they know that's her partner. And so I think now Jessie has come in. She knows there's a possibility that this man could be stolen. And I want to put money on it that they are the next couple to be rocked. They are the next couple to be rocked. I have a funny feeling production are going to give Lucinda another win again. Then you had Whitney at the fire pit with, Belle. And she was saying to Belle, you need to be honest. Why are you not being honest with Leanne? Tell her the truth about what's happening. Stop telling everybody else. Go to Leanne, be honest with her. Tell her the truth about what's going on with you and Scott. Well, I haven't yet confirmed anything. I can't just go to her and say, Scott and I. And it's like, girl, you are the one that is making that comment. Scott is not acknowledging that and is not supporting that. So the idea that you're making these comments and then turning it around to make it seem like Scott is agreeing with you, I don't get it and I don't understand it. And I wish, there was more that was being done to sort of show Belle that this is not right. Leanne has spent weeks crying to you or days crying to you only for you to say, oh, she said no to him and it's my turn to jump in. I didn't like that. And Scott, surprisingly, all the girls are dragging him for a chat. He went and he disturbed, Tommy was having a chat with Leanne. We don't know what they were talking about. And so he sat down and he started talking to Leanne and he was saying, what did you mean by I miss you? And she asked, what did you mean by, we're not done until I say we're done? And so they started talking. It's really cute when you see them. I wish Love Island would leave them alone. They remind me of Dylan and Sophie, how Love Island Australia sort of tore them apart. And I have a feeling production might still want to use Scott for their shows, and this is why they don't want him to sort of be set in his couple, because they can see that he's infatuated and is in love with Leanne, and so they're trying to sort of break them up. They did have a flirty chat, and Leanne was saying, you know, after the heart rate challenge, the door is slightly open, and Scott wanted to confirm, is it open? And she said, yeah. And so it was really cute to see them just speak and just be peaceful. Scott, his kryptonite is Leanne. I've said this before. Because she said to him, take off your trousers. I don't know what was underneath your trousers. So he took off. You initially refused. And they said, oh, take it off. And immediately he did it. He didn't argue. He didn't do anything. Showed her. They were both laughing. And then he stood her up and gave her a hug. And it's like, Scott has done everything to prove to Leanne that he really likes her. But the fact that he's being sent to explore connections with other people for reasons known to whoever is sending him to explore these connections. Because Belle knows that Scott is not into her. He knows he's not into Belle. And he's told people that he has feelings for Leanne and is on Operation Leanne. But because the Leanne is not sort of the demographic they were hoping Scott would go for, this is why this whole mess is going on. And has been going on for a very long time. It's past overdue. You have the islanders getting ready for the night, and people are still talking about the heart rate challenge. Some people are not happy with the results, and it's like, what did you expect? Producers are trying to produce a show. They need the drama, because at the moment, if we sort of remove Scott, Leanne, and the Belle storyline, there's nothing else. Yes, they've started introducing Harrison, but that's not enough to sort of grasp people's attention, and this is why they're continuing on this hamster wheel, not taking into consideration somebody else's feelings. So I'm happy that Scott has taken into consideration what Leanne said and is making sure that he checks in with her and he makes sure that he updates on everything that's going on. Because in the morning, you had Scott, you know, having a conversation. Kieran, on his part, you can tell he's not on board, and I think Kieran understands what's happening, but there's nothing he can do to save his friend, because Scott was in the kitchen with him and having a conversation and being asked, so what's going to happen? Where do you stand? And he said, you know, Leanne and I have agreed that, you know, with the doors open, but we're not back completely, so I'm going to continue to work on that. And then whatever happens with Belle happens with Belle. You had the girls having a chat about Jessie, sort of saying, oh, Jessie. Well, you can see Millie's insecurities, because she's saying Jessie's very beautiful, she's a stunning girl, this, that, and the other, she's just like me, so I can see Zac wanting her. And it's like, girl, if Zac wants her, that's it. What do you expect him to do? He can go after her at the end of the day. You know, there's nothing else we can do. Whitney is still annoyed by the results, and she doesn't understand why the results came out the way they did, because she's still questioning why, you know, she was in the bottom with her guy, because Lucinda and Sean were the highest hearts raised, and she was the lowest with Yemen. Jessie pulls Zac for a chat, and the girls were looking at Millie to say, you know, you were saying that, you know, she's a good girl, look at what's happening now. And what I didn't like is everybody else, bar Lucinda and Leanne, was sitting in that group. And it's like, so we're isolating Leanne because somebody wants her man. Make that make sense? Justify that? I understand Lucinda stole somebody's man, but to isolate Leanne, whose guy is actively being stolen by somebody else, for the person who's stealing a guy, I personally didn't like it, and I didn't understand why Whitney was there, and I'm disappointed in Whitney and some of the things that she said and done. Anyway, Zac was saying, you know, he wants to know every person. He's open to exploring with Jess. What do I think? Zac is getting more attention than he got on his season. Do I think there is a chemistry there? I think if Jessie thinks that there's no one else for her, she's going to steal Zac. My money is she's going to steal Zac, and I don't know whether Millie will be able to steal Zac back from her, because she did speak about her coupling with Joey on their season and how that played out and how people had opinions about him and how, you know, people didn't receive him very well, it seems, once they left the villa, and this is how they broke up. So I don't know, good for them. You have Leanne on the daybeds with Lucinda, and they actually see Belle go and pull Scott for a chat. And you know, Leanne is saying, this is not on. How is she pulling Scott for a chat? when she knows what's going on between me and Scott. The least she could have done is come and had a chat with me and explained what's going on. Lucinda wasn't on board with it. Lucinda was saying, you are my girl, I'm going to stick up for you because you are not sticking up for yourself. You can't continue to sit there and allow this woman to do whatever she's doing, because at the end of the day, she gave me smoke. You should be giving her smoke. And I think this is one of the reasons why Belle is so emboldened, because she knows Leanne is non-confrontational and doesn't like unnecessary drama. And this is why she has decided that she's entitled to Scott and not Leanne, because Scott is telling everyone with ears to hear that I have feelings for Leanne. He's actually told Leanne, I have feelings for her. For you after the heart rate challenge. So they sit in the secret garden, and I love that Scott was very smart, because he sat down and you could tell, Belle was waiting to come and sit down next to him, and he said, no, sit there. So he sort of sat across from her, folded his hands, folded his legs, and it's like, let's go, body language expert. They had a chat, with them, sort of saying, where do we stand? Because Belle, I think, is trying to suss out, where do we stand? Is there a possibility that we can explore this? And Scott said, I fancied you at the start. He doesn't say, I fancy you now. He said, at the start, I fancied you. But, hey, I'm open to chats, and I just want us to agree that whatever happens, we will still remain friends. And personally, I've noticed a trend with Scott. The moment he friend zones you, know that there's nothing there. This is why he said to Leanne, you and I cannot be friends. We can never be friends. It will be disastrous. But the moment he broke off things with Sher, he told her, we're friends. Now he's telling Belle that whatever happens, we just confirm that we'll still be friends, which tells me that he's open to exploring and pretending with this whatever nonsense is happening between the two of them. But at the end of the day, I don't think he sees anything there. Belle is making more of a big deal of it than he actually is. And Belle was saying, I've always fancied you. I know we've been giving each other eyes. And Scott said, yeah, a while ago, but not at the moment. I have noticed you checking me out and stuff. And it's like, Belle is imposing how she feels about Scott on Scott. Scott is not the one who's saying he really fancies her and he wants to explore that connection and whatever. She is the one who has feelings for Scott and is going around telling people what she feels, as though Scott has said that. Because he never said he wanted a romantic. She said, oh, it's surprising that, we were flirting as friends and now we're flirting on a romantic aspect. Scott didn't acknowledge that. He sort of evaded that. He didn't say, yes, we're romantic. He sort of swung around it. Leanne, on the other hand, on the outside, she's unhappy. She really is unhappy. She's saying, this is unacceptable. How can she be screaming and shouting about somebody else and then do exactly the same thing she was complaining about? Make that make sense? I have a feeling once the chat was finished, Scott told her, you need to go and speak to Leanne, because we all know Scott will always send you to Leanne to explain yourself after you chat with him. So she pulled Leanne for a chat, and Scott was nervous. He really was nervous, because he was sitting there. He was watching her, Leanne like a hawk, because he wanted to see what was happening. I totally agree that Scott is in love with Leanne, and I have a feeling he's very protective of Leanne, and this is why whatever he's doing, he's making sure he does things that when she discovers them, they don't break her heart. You had Belle saying, I just want you to know that Scott and I have had a chat and we are open to exploring this to see what happens there, so we're going to continue to pull each other for chats. And Leanne was saying, this is unacceptable. Why didn't you tell me before? You know what I've been through, and for you not to say anything doesn't make sense. Scott was sitting right across from them with Whitney and company, and he was asking, do you think it's going well? Do you think it's going well? And for Whitney to say, oh, they're both mature girls. Yeah, they're both mature girls, but if Yemen, the same thing were to happen, would you be saying that? You kicked off for Yemen being taken to the secret garden just to make Scott jealous, and yet you think that, this is maturity. Anyway, I'm happy that Leanne stood up and walked off. I'm happy she walked off, because it was a pile of doo-doo. It really was. And to have Lucinda be the only person that ran after Leanne is a teachable moment for Leanne. It's a teachable moment for Leanne, because I would have expected Whitney to run after Leanne and check in on Leanne. Hi, Leanne, how are you? Are you okay? Because they both look alike. And so for Whitney to not be considerate of, Leanne and be more considerate of Belle tells you where her values lie. There really does. It's not with Scott, but it lies with a certain demographic. So, hey. Eventually, you had the rest of the girls come in, and they're sort of checking in with Leanne, and they were asking, what's going on? And Leanne was saying, well, apparently they're open to exploring this connection. I've had it. I can't continue to do this. And it's like, somebody should have empathy for the black girls on Love Island, because every single season, every country, they go through fire just to explore love. The guys are in a better position, but the girls go through hell to explore love. Finally, we've had someone. Season 1, we had Kaz, she couldn't find a connection. Season 2, we had Catherine, who struggled for a long time to find a connection. Leanne has walked in, she's found someone who worships the ground she walks on, and suddenly we have to continue to put her in love triangles and make it seem like this guy is really not that into her. Make that make sense, even though he's screaming from the top of his lungs that I have feelings for Leanne. You have Scott then have another chat with Belle and is asking what happened, and Belle is saying, she's upset, but I've told her that we are going to continue to explore this because, we want to see where it goes. And Scott at that moment had to say, I have feelings for Leanne, and I'm trying to sort of understand what's going on there because I poured my heart out to her and she hasn't come back. And sort of, I think when he poured his heart out, there were things he was expecting, or there was a response he was expecting from Leanne, but because Leanne was still in her feelings, she didn't give him that response. And sadly, there are no girlfriends. Whitney is not the friend that Leanne needs, who would have been able to give her advice. I think maybe if it was Catherine would have pulled her aside and had a chat and told her, this is how you need to respond to what he said. That way he understands that you appreciate his honesty. And sadly, Whit is more focused on, God knows what. You had Harrison on the terrace with Sher. I have a feeling they are about to be the next couple. And it's about to be dramatic with them because we can't continue to sort of put Scott in this conveyor belt because Leanne is now shouting and saying, it's enough, I've had enough, I can't do anymore. You have Tommy and Jess go for a chat. That was a waste of time. I personally don't understand why Jess is there. Out of all the islanders that they could bring back, they've decided to bring back Jess. Make it make sense. They could have brought in anybody else, but they decided to bring in Jess. For her to sit with Tommy, I don't see anything there because Tommy is way completely opposite of Joey Essex. So I don't think Jess is that open-minded that she would explore anything with Tommy. I think it's just going to be a friendship couple. Sher sat down with Jack. Jack wanted to understand what's going on with Harrison because he saw that they went for a chat to the terrace. Jack is upset because at the end of the day, he's just come out of a love triangle. Thought he was in a good place and suddenly he's being spun back in. And it's like, buddy, it's your turn. Leanne has been in there a couple of times for way too long. It's your turn to tag in because at the end of the day, we need to be mindful of somebody else's mental health. The islanders pick up their drinks and then you had Scott go and sit down with Leanne. Scott is not in a couple with Leanne. He's not exploring anything. Well, he sort of started exploring something with Leanne. So the idea that someone who's screaming around the villa that Scott and I are being romantic is there, and Scott is going back to Leanne and sitting her down, checking in with her and telling her, we went to the secret garden. This is what we discussed. She wanted to let me know that she had feelings for me, and I said I'm open to exploring it, but at the end of the day, we need to promise each other that we'll always remain friends. And it's like, everybody else is saying he didn't. Yes, there was flirting. There is flirting expected, but I feel like Scott honored what he said, and he told Leanne exactly that. And Scott has got this habit whereby whoever pulls him for a chat, he's going to come back and regurgitate what happened to Leanne. Because to him, Leanne is number one, and Leanne is priority, and it's important that he keeps her in the loop of whatever's happening. For him to pull her up for another hug and a kiss on the cheek, Scott is in love with Leanne, but he's struggling to process that. And I think having the chat that he has with Belle on the terrace is the moment he realized that this is what I need to do. You have, Harrison go for another chat with Sher. I think they make a cuter couple. I do. I think the problem with Harrison is he's an F-boy. He is. He's not the one of the two to play with. And I think Sher is the one who would be able to handle him because he said he loves a spicy girl, and I think she would be it for him. He seems a bit younger than her, but I think they would actually work way better than anybody else. You had Leanne having a chat with Lucinda, and Lucinda said, it's time. Tag me in, coach. Tag me in. I've had enough. Tag me in. Let me drag this woman for filth because she dragged me for weeks about her connection, and yet she is doing exactly to you what she did to me. And I'm like, I want a friend like Lucinda. Lucinda is not as ditzy as people make her out to be because she is now taking on the baton for Leanne because Leanne is sort of someone who's very reserved and is non-confrontational. So she has decided to make herself the spokeswoman for Leanne. And I am happy that she's doing that because Leanne won't face, Lucinda won't face as much backlash as Leanne would face if she decided to go against Belle. So let Lucinda go head to head with Belle. Let them go head to head. I'm here for it, and I love it. Harrison had a chat with Helena, and he was saying to Helena, I'm always comfortable around you. Shall we spin the block? No, they don't need to spin the block. He is now her son. I think he's 23. She's now almost 30. So he needs to take several seats. There's nothing there. There is a friendship there. He should be using her as his sounding board, as his friend, as a place of sort of wisdom or debriefing to sort of see how he can explore his connections. But I don't think he should be discussing exploring a romantic connection. Sher went for another chat with Zac on the mini fire pit. Zac is showing his insecurities because he said to her, I don't want to continue being in love triangles. It's enough. I've had enough. I don't want to continue in love triangles. So you need to make a decision to decide what you want to do. Helena had a chat with Carrington. She decided she wants to reopen the door. Carrington, he's got no other choice, so he's going to reopen the door as well because there's nothing else he can do. They did share a little sweet kiss, and I think they just need to keep each other going until they're dumped. So Scott had a chat with Whitney. I know people like Tanya and Kaz are friends with Leanne. I'm going to need them to sit down with Whitney and actually ask her what's her problem with Leanne, because I am fed up. My fed up is fed up because I don't understand why Whitney continues to try and harp on the fact. Part of me thought initially that maybe it's because she still wants Scott with Catherine, but I don't think that's it. And then I thought maybe she fancies, I don't think she does, because Scott has labeled her a friend and I don't think he would ever go there. And so the only thing I could think of is she knows that Scott is a different man to Leanne. He wants to spend all of his time with Leanne, so she's worried that that might affect her time she spends with her friend. Because for her to continue to recommend everybody else bar Leanne doesn't make sense. She's saying to Scott, use your head and not just your heart. It makes sense. If Scott uses his head, Leanne is the best person for him. If he uses his heart, Leanne is the best person for him because she brings out a different side of him than anything else. He's already said that if he and, Belle fall out, all hell will break loose. So why shouldn't he choose Leanne? To hear Whitney say, oh, I think Belle is the best for you. Okay. Belle then pulled, Scott for a chat. She decided to take him to the terrace because Scott was saying, let's sit here on the daybed. And she went, no, I've got somewhere else. They went up to the terrace. I think she expected Scott to say, let's lie on the little bed upstairs. And Scott said, no, let's go for interview seats again. And they sat across each other. He made sure there was a pillow between the two of them. And so they had this conversation, which I thought was very good. But my issue is Scott has been sort of talking about his couple and the issues he's having in his couple to such an extent that you had Belle say to him, I don't want to continue to hear about you and Leanne. And so I love that he was able to say, I have strong feelings, and when I fall, I fall. My problem is I don't know how to express it, and I don't know how to process it. And I think sitting down and sort of having this debrief with Belle was good for him because he was able to see that maybe this is what I need to do in order to win Leanne. So I can't wait to see what happens there because I feel like this is his breakthrough moment. I have a feeling Leanne is going to say, I'm done, I'm leaving. And when she says she's leaving, Scott is right behind her. I don't see him staying in the villa when Leanne leaves. I really don't. Scott is having chats with Belle. Every single conversation has been Belle pulling Scott. Scott has never been shown to pull Belle for a chat. She is the one who is grafting him and grafting him hard. The problem is every time she grafts him for a chat, he then comes back and has a conversation with Leanne. And so I can't wait to see what this drama is about in the next episode. You then have, Leanne having a conversation with Whitney and Yemen is saying, this is too much. I wouldn't be putting up with this. And Leanne is saying, yeah, I wouldn't normally. The problem is she's fallen in love with Scott and Scott has fallen in love with her. And then there's everything else that comes with it, the show. I think had they fallen in love outside of the show, they would have had a good chance of actually working. And I am happy if they leave. I'm happy if they leave because at that 50,000, I think they can always make it. They have a lot of credit behind them. They have a lot of footage from the show that it will give them the clout that they need to sort of get exposure to other deals. I can't wait to see what happens. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Click on the link in my video to watch my review from episode 23. Bye guys.